I should have known something was wrong when Mark insisted on having Jake's birthday party at home, instead of the adventure park our son had been begging for all year. "It'll be more intimate," he'd said, barely looking up from his phone. "More meaningful." Now, as I arrived early to set up the decorations, his words felt like shards of glass in my chest. The house was quiet. Mark had taken Jake out for breakfast, giving me time to make everything perfect, just like always. Me, making everything perfect while he played the fun parent. I arranged the superhero plates and hung the banner Jake had picked out himself. 10 years old. How had a decade passed so quickly? It felt like yesterday I was holding him for the first time, Mark's tears dropping onto my hospital gown as he whispered, "We're a family now." The French doors to the garden were open, letting in the morning breeze. I was heading out to set up the outdoor games when I heard her voice, Linda, my mother-in-law. Before I continue, if you're finding this story intriguing, please consider subscribing to our channel. We share real-life stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that notification bell so you won't miss what happens next. I froze behind the doorframe. Linda wasn't supposed to arrive for another 2 hours. "You promised me you'd do it today." Her voice carried that sharp edge I knew too well, the one she used when she thought I couldn't hear. "The papers are in your car." My heart stopped. Mark's voice drifted through the morning air, tired and strained. "I know, Mom. After the cake." "After the cake?" "Mark, we discussed this. You need to—" I said I know. His voice cracked. It's Jake's birthday." Which is exactly why today is perfect. She won't make a scene in front of all those people. You'll be protected." Protected? From me? My legs felt like water. I gripped the doorframe, my knuckles white against the wood. The party supplies in my other hand, balloons, streamers, a tablecloth with Jake's favorite characters, suddenly felt like props in someone else's life. "She's been a good mother," Mark said quietly. Linda's laugh was bitter. "Good mothers don't do what she's done. You have the evidence. David confirmed everything." "David? Mark's lawyer friend?" "The papers are signed?" Linda pressed. "Yes." That single word shattered something inside me. Signed. Past tense. Already done. While I'd been planning our son's party, choosing his cake, wrapping his presents, my husband had been signing papers to end our marriage. Good. Stick to the plan. After everyone sings happy birthday, after the cake, you take her aside. The kitchen would be best. Private but close enough that she won't cause a scene. Give her the papers and tell her she has 1 week to move out. 1 week? 10 years of marriage and I'd have 1 week. What about Jake? Mark's voice was barely a whisper. "We've been over this. Your custody lawyer says with the documentation we have, you'll get full custody within 6 months. Maybe supervised visits for her, if she behaves." The decorations slipped from my hand, scattering across the floor. I pressed my palm against my mouth, stifling a sob. They were going to take my son. They were going to destroy me at his birthday party and then take him away. My hands trembled as I bent to collect the fallen supplies. Through the window, I could see Mark's car in the driveway. "The papers are in your car." Divorce papers. Sitting there like a loaded gun, waiting to destroy everything I'd built, everything I loved. The sound of another car pulling up made me jump. Guests would start arriving soon. And my husband, the man I'd loved for 12 years, was planning to serve me divorce papers after we sang happy birthday to our son. I forced myself to breathe, to move, to continue setting up as if my world wasn't crumbling. My hands worked on autopilot while my mind reeled backward, searching for signs I'd missed. When had it started? When had my mother-in-law's casual criticisms turned into something more sinister? A year ago. Yes, that's when Linda's visits became more frequent. "Just wanting to help," she'd said, showing up unannounced with groceries because she'd noticed you bought the wrong kind of milk for Jake again. The comments had been subtle at first. "Sarah, darling, that dress makes you look tired." Maybe try something more flattering? Or during family dinners. Mark, you work so hard. It's a shame Sarah can't manage the household budget better. Do you really need a housekeeper when she's home? I wasn't home. I worked part-time as a graphic designer. But in Linda's world, that didn't count as real work. Then came the seeds of doubt about my parenting. Jake seems anxious lately. Are you sure you're not being too strict? Followed the next week by, Jake needs more structure. You're too permissive, Sarah. The front door opened, jolting me back to the present. My sister-in-law Kate arrived with her twins. Sarah, need help with anything? I plastered on a smile. Just finishing up the garden decorations. The kids can play in Jake's room if they want. Normal. I had to appear normal. As Kate headed upstairs, my phone buzzed. A text from Jake. Dad's taking forever at breakfast. When can we come home? My sweet boy. He had no idea his father was stalling, giving Linda time to coordinate their ambush. 3 months ago, that's when I'd seen the texts. Mark had left his phone on the counter and a message popped up. Can't wait to start our new life. She doesn't deserve you. When I'd asked him about it, he'd snatched the phone away. Just spam, he'd said. But he'd changed his passcode that night. More guests arrived. Tom and Michelle from next door. Parents from Jake's soccer team. My hands shook as I greeted them, directed them to the refreshments. Linda's words echoed, She won't make a scene in front of all those people. They were using my own courtesy against me. My predictable need to keep things pleasant, to avoid conflict. How many times had Linda witnessed me smile through her insults rather than argue in front of Jake? I slipped into the bathroom and pulled out my phone. My best friend Emma was supposed to come later, but I needed her now. She was the only one who knew how bad things had gotten with Linda. Bring your laptop, emergency. I typed, then added, please, as soon as you can. Emma's response was immediate. On my way, 20 minutes. The sound of car doors slamming made me peer out the window. Mark's BMW pulled into the garage. He was back with Jake. My son bounded out, his face bright with excitement, clutching a new action figure, probably Mark's guilt gift. I watched my husband emerge slowly, adjusting his jacket. The papers. They were in there somewhere. I needed to know for certain. Needed to see them with my own eyes. Mom! Jake burst through the door. Dad let me get 2 desserts at breakfast, and look what he bought me. I hugged him tight, breathing in his little boy smell of syrup and sunshine. Happy birthday, baby. Why don't you show your cousins upstairs? I need to grab something from Dad's car. Mark was in the kitchen, avoiding my eyes. Great job with the decorations, he mumbled. Thanks. I just need to get the extra party favors from your car. He stiffened. I'll get them. No need. I know where I put them. I grabbed his keys before he could protest. My heart hammered as I opened his car door. The glove box, empty. The center console, nothing. Then I saw the manila envelope tucked beneath the passenger seat, partially hidden. My name stared back at me in cold legal type. Petition for dissolution of marriage, of I. Inside, Mark's signature was already there, dated a week ago. While I'd been planning our son's birthday party, my husband had already signed our marriage away. The divorce papers burned in my hands. I slid them back under the seat, my mind oddly calm. I'd always been good in a crisis. It was afterward when I fell apart. Right now, I needed information. Back inside, the party was gaining momentum. Children ran through the yard while parents clustered around the food table. Mark was playing the perfect host, laughing too loudly at someone's joke. Linda sat like a queen on the patio, directing a caterer where to place the cake. Emma texted, I told Mark casually. She's running late but asked if I could work on a quick design mock-up for her client meeting tomorrow. I'll just be in the office for 10 minutes. Today? Now? His brow furrowed in irritation. It's Jake's party. Just 10 minutes. You've got everything covered, right? I didn't wait for his answer. Our home office was really just a desk in the corner of our bedroom. Mark's tablet sat charging on the nightstand. He always left it home when taking Jake out, worried our son would ask to play games on it. 3 attempts at the passcode. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. His birthday. Incorrect. I hesitated, then typed Jake's birthday. The screen unlocked. So predictable, Mark. Just like your betrayal. I opened his email, stomach knotting. Nothing incriminating in his inbox. He'd be too careful for that. I checked his archived folders and found one labeled Project Fresh Start. My hands trembled as I tapped it open. Dozens of emails between Mark and Linda dating back 8 months. I scrolled to the earliest one. Mark, I've attached the information about divorce attorneys David recommended. Remember what we discussed. Document everything. Every time she raises her voice at Jake, every time she's late picking him up, every expense she can't explain. We need a pattern of instability. My chest tightened. They'd been building a case against me for months. I kept reading, scanning through their methodical plan. Linda suggesting Mark accidentally leave his phone where I could see messages from an unknown number. Linda coaching him on how to provoke arguments, then record my responses. Linda introducing him to Crystal. Crystal. The name appeared repeatedly in newer emails. Crystal is excited about meeting Jake officially. She thinks he'll adjust quickly once Sarah's out of the picture. My son. They were planning how another woman would raise my son. I found a photo attached to one email. A young blonde woman, maybe 26, 27, sitting across from Mark at a restaurant, their hands intertwined on the table. The timestamp was from 3 months ago. Crystal understands what we're trying to accomplish, Linda wrote. She's on board with the timeline. Once the divorce is final and you have custody, you two can stop hiding. Bile rose in my throat. I forced myself to keep searching. Who was this woman? How had they met? Then I found it. An email thread about Crystal's employment. She wasn't just Linda's friend. She was her assistant at the charity foundation Linda ran. The foundation Mark's company funded. I opened Mark's cloud drive, searching for anything else. A folder labeled Foundation Audit caught my eye. Inside were spreadsheets, bank statements, transaction records. I'm not a financial expert, but even I could see something was wrong. Payments to vendors that didn't exist. Consulting fees for services never rendered. All authorized by Linda. All signed off by her assistant, Crystal. My mother-in-law wasn't just trying to destroy my marriage. She was stealing from her own son's company. I clicked through more documents, my shock deepening. Over $500,000 had disappeared over the past 2 years. And the account numbers receiving these suspicious payments? They all traced back to 2 names, Linda Wilson and Crystal Mercer. The doorbell rang downstairs. Emma had arrived. I quickly took photos of the most damning evidence with my phone, then closed the tablet and headed down to greet my friend, my mind racing with a plan. If they wanted war, they'd get one. I spotted Emma instantly through the crowd, her red hair like a beacon as she navigated between children playing tag in the living room. Her laptop bag was slung over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the room until they locked with mine. "Sorry I'm late," she said, hugging me. "Traffic was brutal." "You're right on time," I whispered, leading her toward the kitchen. "I need your expertise." Emma wasn't just my best friend. She was a forensic accountant who specialized in finding financial discrepancies for divorce cases. I'd watched her help countless women uncover hidden assets their husbands tried to conceal. Now, I needed her skills for myself. In the quiet of the kitchen, I quickly showed her the photos I'd taken. "These transaction records," I explained, pointing to my phone screen. "They don't make sense. Linda's foundation keeps paying these vendors, but—" "Shell companies," Emma interrupted, her expression darkening as she scrolled through the images. "Classic embezzlement structure, may I?" She pulled out her laptop and began working, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I kept watch at the kitchen doorway, making sure no one interrupted us. "Sarah!" Linda's voice called from the living room. "Where are those extra napkins?" "Coming," I answered, grabbing a stack from the drawer. When I entered the living room, Linda was holding court among the mothers from Jake's school, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing as she spoke. She took the napkins without looking at me, but as I turned away, I caught her expression, a smug, satisfied smile that chilled me to the bone. She thought she'd won already. I returned to Emma, who was deep in concentration. "This is bad, Sarah," she murmured. "Very bad. They've siphoned over $500,000 through fake vendors. All the money traces to accounts controlled by Linda and someone named Crystal Mercer." The doorbell rang again. Through the front window, I saw a blonde woman stepping out of a taxi. The woman from the photo. "That's her," I whispered. "That's Crystal." Mark rushed to the door, his movements stiff with tension. I watched as he greeted Crystal with an awkward side hug, then loudly introduced her to everyone as a family friend. Emma was still working furiously on her laptop. "I'm running Crystal through some databases," she whispered when I returned. "If she's who I think she is—" She stopped, eyes widening. "Found her. Crystal Mercer, 26, works for Linda's foundation, and—" She turned the screen toward me. "She's married to a guy named Derek Mercer. Marriage license issued 3 years ago in Phoenix." My mind reeled. The woman my husband was planning to leave me for, the woman who would supposedly be a new mother to my son, was already married. "I've got it all documented," Emma said, her voice cold with anger. "The embezzlement, the fraud, everything. What do you want to do?" Before I could answer, Linda's voice rang out over the noise of the party. "Everyone, it's time for cake. Jake, come sit at the head of the table." My son bounded over, face alight with excitement. Mark stood beside the table, his expression tense as guests gathered around. I watched his hand move to the inside pocket of his jacket, where a corner of the manila envelope peeked out. "Before we sing," Mark announced, his voice carrying over the crowd, "I'd like to say a few words." Linda's smile widened. Crystal shifted nervously by the doorway. My mother-in-law gave a small, encouraging nod to her son. This was it. The moment they'd planned for months. Mark was about to blindside me with divorce papers in front of all our friends and family at our son's birthday party. I caught Emma's eye across the room. She gave me the slightest nod. It was time. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the punch bowl. I tapped my phone screen and Linda's distinctive voice filled the room. "He actually thinks we're helping him," Linda's recorded voice said with a laugh. "My son has always been so gullible." Crystal's higher-pitched voice responded, "I can't believe he bought that story about Sarah cheating. Those fake texts you created were genius. Men see what they want to see, dear. I've been manipulating Mark his entire life." "Why stop now?" Crystal giggled. "And after today, when she's gone? Then we accelerate the plan. I've already moved most of the money offshore. Once Mark has full custody of Jake and the divorce is final, we'll convince him to sign over controlling interest in the company for tax purposes. By the time he realizes what's happened, we'll be untouchable." I stopped the recording. The timestamp showed it was from just an hour ago, when Linda had arrived early for the party. Linda's face contorted with rage. That's doctored. She's manipulated that recording." I turned to face the guests, many of whom were parents I'd known for years. "I discovered today that for months Linda has been systematically convincing Mark I was unfaithful. She created fake text messages, hired people to report seeing me with other men. All lies." Mark stared at his mother, his face ashen. "Mom?" I continued, my voice steady. "While making Mark believe I was betraying him, Linda and Crystal were embezzling from the Wilson Foundation and Mark's company. The evidence is all there." Emma stepped forward, tablet in hand. "As a forensic accountant, I can confirm these financial records show clear evidence of fraud and embezzlement totaling over $500,000. The money trail leads directly to accounts controlled by Linda Wilson and Crystal Mercer." Mr. Johnson, Mark's primary business partner, stood up. "Mark, is this true?" Before Mark could answer, I addressed the room again. Linda convinced Mark I was cheating, while simultaneously introducing him to Crystal, her married assistant, as a potential replacement. Their plan was for Mark to divorce me today, at our son's birthday party, then use fabricated evidence to get full custody of Jake. I looked directly at Mark. Your mother has been stealing from you for years while manipulating you to destroy our marriage, and you believed her. Every lie, every insinuation. Linda lunged toward me, but my brother David caught her arm. You ungrateful little... Careful, Linda, I said. There are children present. Crystal was sobbing now, backed against the wall. It wasn't my idea. Linda promised me a cut if I played along. She said Mark would never know about the money. The room erupted. Parents gathered their children, Mark's business partners huddled together speaking in urgent whispers, and Jake, my sweet, confused son, looked from his father to me with tears in his eyes. Is Grandma a bad person, Mom? He asked. Before I could answer, Mark fell to his knees in front of me, the divorce papers slipping from his jacket to the floor. Sarah, he choked out. I didn't know. About the money, about Crystal being married. Mom told me she had proof you were... He couldn't finish. I stepped around him, picking up the fallen divorce papers. Funny thing, Mark. I've spent the last hour wondering how I would feel at this moment. Would I be devastated? Furious? But looking at you now, I just feel sorry for you. I turned to face our guests. I apologize for the drama. This wasn't how Jake's birthday was supposed to go. I looked at my son. Jake, honey, why don't you and your friends go out back for the piñata while the adults talk? As the children filed out, Mr. Johnson pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. The next few minutes unfolded like a scene from a movie I couldn't believe I was starring in. Mark stood slowly, his face transitioning from shock to a fury I'd never witnessed in our 12 years together. Mom, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Tell me it's not true. Linda straightened her designer jacket, composing herself with remarkable speed. Of course it's not true. Sarah clearly doctored those records because she knew you were going to divorce her. She's desperate. Mr. Johnson stepped forward, tablet in hand. These transfer authorizations have your signature, Linda, and these shell companies trace back to your address in Florida. I sign dozens of documents every week, Linda snapped. Crystal handles all the day-to-day operations. If there's been any financial impropriety... Don't you dare, Crystal interrupted, her mascara streaming down her face. Don't you dare pin this on me. I have the original emails where you outlined the entire embezzlement plan. I kept them as insurance. Linda's carefully constructed facade cracked. You ungrateful little... 15%, Crystal continued, looking at Mark. That's what she promised me. 15% of everything we took if I helped her convince you that Sarah was cheating and agreed to date you. She said you were so desperate for your mother's approval that you'd believe anything she told you. The color drained from Mark's face as he turned back to his mother. You made me believe Sarah was unfaithful? All those text messages, the witnesses who saw her with other men, all orchestrated by your mother, I said quietly. Every single bit of it. Emma handed her phone to Mr. Johnson. I've emailed you the complete financial records. The police will need them. Mrs. Johnson put her arm around Jake, who had come back inside despite my instructions. We'll take Jake for ice cream while you sort this out, she said kindly. I nodded gratefully. Linda made a sudden move toward the door, but my brother blocked her path. I don't think so, he said firmly. Mark fell to his knees in front of me again, grabbing my hands. Sarah, please, you have to believe me. I didn't know about the money. I would never have... You would never have what, Mark? Trusted your mother over your wife? Planned to ambush me with divorce papers at our son's birthday party? Tried to take my child away from me? I pulled my hands free. You did all those things. Dad? Jake's small voice cut through the tension. He stood in the doorway, having slipped away from Mrs. Johnson. Is it true? Were you going to make Mom leave? Mark reached for him. Jake, buddy, it's complicated. Jake walked past his father and wrapped his arms around my waist, burying his face against me. The simple gesture broke something in Mark. I watched him crumple. I've already filed for divorce, I said quietly, meeting Mark's shocked eyes. Last week, after I found the first evidence of what you were planning. My attorney has been building our case while you and your mother were building yours." "No," Mark whispered. "Sarah, please, we can fix this." "This isn't something you can fix, Mark. This is who you are." I looked around at the remaining guests, at Linda's rigid fury, at Crystal's defeated slump. "You chose your mother over me again and again. You chose to believe the worst about me without ever giving me a chance to defend myself." The sound of sirens approached in the distance. "The difference between us," I said, holding Jake close, "is that I have actual evidence of betrayal. And unlike you, I'm not willing to forgive it. 6 months can change everything." The streamers hung from the same ceiling, the cake sat on the same table, but nothing else was the same as I prepared for Jake's 11th birthday party. His first double-digit celebration had ended in chaos. This one would be different. I adjusted the superhero tablecloth, still his favorite theme, and smiled as Emma arranged cupcakes beside the cake. "Nervous?" she asked. "No," I replied, surprising myself with how true it was. For the first time in years, I'm not walking on eggshells in my own home. My home. The court had awarded me the house without contest after the evidence emerged. Linda had been sentenced to 8 years for embezzlement and fraud. The last I'd heard, Crystal had fled to Arizona after cutting a deal with prosecutors, her marriage apparently over after her husband discovered her affair with Mark. The doorbell rang. Jake raced down the stairs, nearly colliding with Emma's new girlfriend who was carrying a tray of drinks. "That's probably Zach and Tyler," he shouted, referring to his best friends. The house soon filled with laughter. Real laughter, not the strained politeness of last year's gathering. Parents who had witnessed the meltdown 6 months ago now chatted comfortably, many having reached out with support in the aftermath. Emma and I had channeled that support into our new consulting firm, helping women navigate financial investigations during divorce. It turned out my public humiliation had become a powerful business card. Women who'd been gaslighted by manipulative partners recognized something in my story that resonated with their own. "Sarah?" Emma called from the front window. "He's here." I felt Jake tense beside me, then raced to the window. "Dad's here!" Mark stood on the walkway, a wrapped gift in his hands. He looked thinner, older somehow. The company he'd built had collapsed after his partners withdrew, unwilling to trust a man who had been so thoroughly manipulated. He'd sold what remained for a fraction of its worth. "Why don't you go get the door?" I suggested to Jake. He hesitated. "Are you sure it's okay?" "It's your birthday, and it's your dad." Jake threw open the front door. Mark knelt down, presenting the gift with a tentative smile. "Happy birthday, buddy." "Thanks, Dad." I approached the doorway, keeping a respectful distance. Our eyes met over Jake's head. "You look well," Mark said softly. I nodded. The therapy has helped. Jake's too. The supervised visitations had been my idea, not the court's. Despite everything, Jake needed his father, a broken, humbled version perhaps, but his father nonetheless. "I won't stay," Mark said, backing away. "I just wanted to drop this off." Jake looked between us, his face falling. "But Dad—" "Your friends are waiting, honey," I reminded him gently. Mark turned to leave, shoulders slumped in a way that still stirred complicated feelings within me. Not love, that had died in the crucible of his betrayal, but something like pity mixed with the faintest echo of affection for the man I once believed him to be. "Dad!" Jake suddenly called, breaking away from me and running after his father. "Wait!" Mark turned, surprise evident on his face as Jake wrapped his arms around him. Over our son's head, Mark's eyes met mine, grateful, pained, remorseful. I nodded slightly, acknowledging what didn't need to be said aloud. Jake would always be our common ground. As they embraced, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't realized I'd still been carrying. My new business was thriving. My son was healing. My home was filled with genuine friends and authentic laughter. People often talk about revenge as a dish best served cold. But standing there, watching my past and future intersect on my doorstep, I realized the best revenge wasn't destroying those who wronged me. It was building a life so beautiful they couldn't touch it. A life where their absence was not a wound but a foundation.